Damp near a railway. Unique challenges and solutions.
We purchased the house about a year and a half ago. It had been empty and quite derelict. Now we want to redecorate downstairs, but we've got some persistent damp areas, especially with peeling paint in the dining room and damp patches near the chimney breast and bay window in the lounge.
You're experiencing classic condensation, particularly at the base of the wall where gravity is pulling the water down and you've got the low temperatures, particularly by the subfloor ventilation.
Could dampness be entering through external holes or cracks?
No, I think it's the heat loss. So, for instance, around the plugs.
Then why is it particularly damp at the base of the walls? Is that rising damp?
No, rising damp comes from groundwater. That's the water under the water table. And in London and other cities, water is pumped out. The groundwater is pumped out, so it's impossible. Plus, even if it weren't pumped out, you're in a zone with low groundwater risk.
We're right next to a railway line, which means I have to keep windows closed most of the time because of the noise.
That's exactly what's different about your property. You're by a railway line, so you need increased ventilation because you're not going to naturally open windows, which you should otherwise do. So the solution is to use dehumidification and targeted ventilation. So kitchen, bathroom.
Would insulating the walls help in this particular situation?
Insulation isn't instead of dehumidification and ventilation, but yes, it would help, and it would also help with the sound. So consider rock wool and space therm. I would encourage you to use vapor permeable insulation because you've got timber at the base of the wall, and if you've got PIR, the sort of plastic insulation, you can get condensation forming within the wall. So there's no evidence of rising damp, and anyway, there's plenty of evidence of condensation, and so you should be able to save yourself probably around £10,000 for ineffective damp proofing treatment that would anyway have resulted in the same sort of condensation issues. So the other thing to mention is that there is some penetrating damp up at the top, and that seems to come from either a lintel or damaged brickwork above the window. Use a vapor strategy, monitor the internal dew point, and always make sure the internal dew point is below the outside temperature. In a well-ventilated property, it will always be outside the external temperature, but you don't need to go too far down below the outside temperature. You have to remember the outside temperature, you have to remember that vapor can be measured as dew point. It's also the temperature where condensation takes place at. The outside dew point will never be above the outside temperature because otherwise it would rain, and that is what rain is, condensation. So if you maintain internal dew point by measuring and use dehumidifier and targeted ventilation, it's a logger system. You can see it's on the website damp.ai/detect. I've already installed the files, but you can just click this button and upload all the files. So I've uploaded all of them, and I'm selecting the dining room and I'm comparing it to the kitchen, but you can select whichever files you like. The temperature of the dining room at the time of the survey was 17.1. It was 12 o'clock on the 24th of April. So press the graph and this pops up. Now, I'll tell you what I'm seeing, and then I'll tell you how to use this in the future. So what I'm seeing is the surface relative humidity. This line here is about 60%, which is fine. It shows that the property is drying out. But in winter, obviously, it could be much higher. This line here is the surface temperature, the red line, and then the outside temperature is this light pink line, which is taken from various sites using the Met Office. This blue line, the dew point line, is the line that you want to keep below the outside temperature. So there are times when it's higher than the outside temperature. It's inevitable to some extent that at night you're going to trap in the humidity and you can get condensation at night. So just be aware that there are times such as the 25th and 27th, even 30th, when you've got quite a lot of vapor trapped in. Presume you're closing the windows at night and there's very little change in the vapor over time, which is not abnormal, but these are the times you want to be really running the dehumidifier to just extract the excess vapor to reduce the risk of condensation. Because in any property, inevitably, there are going to be some walls that get down to the outside temperature just because of subfloor ventilation or poor insulation or lack of airflow. There can be lots of reasons. Cold water pipes, even just pipes entering and exiting, wiring. So this line here is the dew point differential, and these are times when you're getting more vapor from the kitchen. So this is the one in the second data logger compared to the first data logger. And that's presumably because you're cooking and there's no ventilation from the kitchen. So just be aware of that. Little you can do at the moment in the short term, but in the long term, you want to put in an extractor fan in the kitchen. So those are the main things. You can zoom in, you can look in at a particular day and have a closer look at this. I update this as often as I can do, but it obviously takes time. So I do it around periods when I'm doing surveys. But you can keep a data logger outside yourself and just put in the file here, and then you've got the comparative between your data logger outside and your internal data logger.
Understanding your unique circumstances, like proximity to a railway, is key to effectively managing damp and maintaining a healthy, comfortable home.